Deep down inside, I don't want to quit porn. I've just admitted this to myself, and that is why I have a hard time quitting. I relapse like every 2 days, three at most. I always find a way around blockers. I wish I had a mate. I use porn as a substitute for real sex. I suck at attracting the right people into my life, whether it's friends or relationships. Porn doesn't abuse me the way other people have. I just have been trying to quit porn because I have been fed messages that porn is really bad and ruins your sex drive and attention span. Convince me to quit for real, please. So props to this guy because he's actually saying what a lot of men won't, and it's that so many young men use porn to numb the loneliness that they feel. They use it as a substitute for actual connection and affection. And, I've heard this before, this whole thing of like watching porn because you're lonely, but I didn't really think it was true, or at least I didn't want to admit it was true. But especially when you're single, it can be hard to acknowledge that you could be touch deprived and you could be lonely. And I feel like in today's world, we often romanticize, being a lone wolf, and we tell ourselves we are battling our demons and we're focusing on ourselves. And I don't want to say that's inherently bad because yes, isolation can lead to, improved focus, and it can give you time to work on yourself and goals without distractions. But let's not pretend that we're not human. Humans also crave connection, whether you want to admit it or not. And I believe this is part of the reason why you see porn addiction in men more often than women. Women are very good at maintaining friendships, and us guys, we're notorious for having surface level friendships, if any. And I'm sorry, but it's just pure cope if you're telling yourself you don't need friends or you don't need relationships, because I'm willing to bet that when you're alone at night and you're lying in bed, that is when you turn to porn the most. So back to this guy. He at least acknowledged that part of the reason quitting is hard is because he's lonely. And, I would say his problem isn't the worst because he can at least go 2 days and sometimes 3. And let me tell you guys, when my porn addiction was at its worst, like I would go multiple times a day. So, this guy, he's not in like the worst spot. So my main advice to this guy, and it's not going to be the usual advice I would give, like removing triggers, physical health, meditation, all that. And that's a great advice, and it does work. And that's just not the point of this video. I just want to focus on how to solve like the root of this guy's problem, and that's his loneliness. And the way you solve loneliness, it's a bit complicated. I'm not going to tell you to just like go outside, talk to people, or like join clubs and all that shit, because I'm assuming you've already heard of that. And there are tons of videos out there on like how to make friends and how to socialize and how to talk to girls and shit like that. And you should watch those videos, because this is like one of those things where you can do all the right things, but sometimes you just fail. And it's really important to not learn the wrong lesson, because sometimes when we don't get the result we want, we assume our approach is wrong. Because I've heard a lot of stories about, people like putting themselves out there and like, they're actually nice people, and then they have a hard time just like making friends, have a hard time getting into a relationship, and they're genuinely like a normal person. But sometimes you genuinely just fail, and that's fine. And it doesn't mean you did something wrong. So yes, understand that loneliness doesn't just solve itself. You actually need to treat it as something you can improve on every day. When you go to the gym and you're not getting stronger every day, like you don't just say like, oh, the gym doesn't work for me. You keep going, because the same way you get stronger in the gym and like optimizing and taking different approaches, like maybe you're eating more carbs or something, it's the same way you get more sociable. Like the more time you spend actually trying to improve on being sociable and like spend time talking with others, you're eventually going to improve. And this is where a lot of men can fail, because being rejected doesn't feel good at all, and having no friends doesn't feel good. But don't let this negative feeling consume you, because all this like negativity and your self-loathing mindset, it actually will end up pushing people away from you, and it will end up pushing women away from you, because sometimes you actually just have to pretend that you're a likable, sociable person around other people, and eventually you'll get to a point where it actually improves like how people interact with you. So yes, like I'm telling you, fake it till you make it. And don't think I'm not telling you to, like, I'm telling you not to be yourself, because I'm simply just saying hype yourself up, have an inflated ego, and like practice a positive self-image, because I genuinely believe if you treat making friends and talking to girls like as a skill and like something to practice, you will genuinely manifest like relationships and people around you. So to this, guys, step one is actually understanding that social skills and like having people come into you, like into your life, is actually something you need to work on. It's not just gonna happen without putting in the work. And yes, you will fail. Like, you can't like make people like you. You actually have to become someone that is likable. And like what I recommend is just like being someone that you yourself respect. Like, would you respect someone that goes out of their way and like really tries to meet people through like their interests? Yeah, you would. So like become someone like that. Become someone that you actually respect. Become like a leader in your life. And you have to be comfortable with just being alone, because like there's been periods of my life where like I like didn't talk to any girls. I didn't really want to hang out with anyone in my life. I was like socially inept during COVID. And sometimes I still like actually like being alone. But that's like the main thing. You actually have to like learn to love being alone, and understand that like, even though you crave like all this attention and you crave romantic relationships, like if you don't love yourself, it sounds super cheesy, but if you can't like be alone with yourself, you're actually just not going to have a good time, because you're going to become so dependent on like others. And that's where like all this negativity comes, because you're like, oh fuck, no one likes me. But like, motherfucker, do you like you? Like, do you like yourself? So like, if you don't like yourself, how can you expect others to actually like you? So become someone that you actually fucking like. Work on your goals, become someone that is actually like driven, and become someone that like actually has interesting things. Like, don't become someone who's like always on the internet just like not doing shit, because would you want to be like friends with someone like that, like who doesn't really have any interest? No, you wouldn't. So unfortunately, like, you do have to do a lot of self reflection, and actually like be aware of who you are, and in order to like solve loneliness, because you have to just understand, why aren't people liking you? Are you like someone who's like not very interesting? Are you someone who doesn't like who isn't respectable, who doesn't like work on themselves? So you're gonna have to spend like these periods of time alone, and that's trust me, like if you can get to a point where you actually like really value your alone time, because you're doing things that are like working towards your goals, and you're actually focused, like, dude, you're gonna get to a point where like you don't even like really think about your relationships, and you don't really think too much, because you're actually like working on yourself. And in a way, people, you can call me crazy or whatever, but like I genuinely believe if you work enough on yourself, and like you accomplish your goals, and you just naturally do things that like interest you, people will come into your life. And as long as you're actually like staying driven and like actually working on it, and putting yourself out there, and not just like accepting that like people don't like you, and like that you can't change, like good things will come. People will come into your life. And just don't get complacent, and understand that like, when you're single, you're gonna turn to porn, and as a distraction, and like as a replacement for your lack of connection. And you can get away with it for a while, but if you leave it unchecked, you'll start to like build a reliance on it, and it's gonna make it harder in the future to actually build relationships, especially with a woman. Because if you have like a porn brain, bro, like, and you start talking to a girl, and you start like developing a relationship, and like women can genuinely tell like if you are a gooner brain, like if you have gooner brain, because like it just manifests in like how you speak to them, how you like interact with them. Like they'll be able to know. And even if they don't and you get into a relationship, like, you know, good for you, bro. But if you have developed a porn addiction, it's gonna cause like so many problems like down the line. So yeah, that's like it for today. Just like continue to work on not being someone who like people don't want to be around. And like I know it sounds like I'm putting a lot of blame on yourself, and like, you know, sometimes sometimes people like will just genuinely not want to be around you, and that's okay. Like, but I genuinely believe if you're a good person, you work on the things that matter to you, like you'll find like-minded people. And it doesn't, you don't have to be like the most popular person in the room. You just need to have like a solid circle of people that you can depend on and that take you out of like this hole of like porn addiction, because bro, it's a very lonely hole. And you'll mistake like, you know, orgasming and coming for like genuine pleasure, but like it's short term. Like you'll feel good for like that 5 minutes, you know, if you last like longer, but you'll generally feel good, but immediately like your dopamine's just gonna go like this. You're gonna like feel good like this, and then it's just gonna go down, and you're not gonna feel good anymore. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you guys are able to accomplish what you want. So there you go.